I love talking about corporate revenue. For example, Apple Incorporated, with their fancy $1,400 iPhones, has raked in about $94.8 billion so far in 2023. Last year, the Target Corporation announced $109 billion in sales, and Lululemon has generated a total revenue of $8.1 billion, selling items that would probably total to be more than my car, but hey, I get a free tote bag, right? No, but seriously, they price their leggings to be $98 for the average pair, which, by the way, is about $8 more than what you would pay for an actual human being. I'm going to throw one more industry into the mix, one that isn't typically recognized for its profit: human trafficking, which makes on average $150 billion every year. The Department of Justice has stated that human trafficking is the world's fastest growing criminal enterprise, and the second most profitable after illegal arms trafficking. With this in mind, it's concerning to note that TikTok's hashtag analysis has shown that hashtag human trafficking awareness has gotten over 1.2 billion views on the platform, with influencers sharing fake stories about trafficking. The executive director of Freedom USA has also begun to raise concern, stating that these videos either stem from a sense of moral urgency or a desire for clout. When human trafficking is making nearly $150 billion off the backs of abused and exploited individuals, the word clout should be nowhere near its definition. So today, we're first going to break down what human trafficking is and who is affected. Then, we will learn who is actually committing these crimes before finally understanding why human trafficking and its misinformation is so dangerous. First, we need to break down what human trafficking is and who is affected. According to the Blue Campaign, human trafficking is defined as involving the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Many of the victims are coerced into doing things that their trafficker threatens under the allure of love, commitment, and good fortune. And despite what social media tells us, this does not all happen in the Walmart parking lot with a white passenger van that says free Taylor Swift tickets on the side. Seriously, Google it. In fact, Alicia Peters, an associate professor of anthropology, has stated that she has never heard of one of these big box stores as a place for trafficking, meaning that situations depicted in videos across multiple platforms either aren't true or they are incredibly rare. Human trafficking is almost always perpetrated by someone close to the victim, and Polaris reports that trafficking rarely begins with kidnapping by a stranger. Instead, traffickers choose to groom their victims by using love. Take, for example, the case of Willie Obadiah, a 32-year-old man who groomed a 17-year-old girl in foster care through Facebook. He eventually convinced the teen to meet him, and she was trafficked, advertised for sale online, and raped by 8 different men. She barely managed to escape, and Obadiah was only sentenced to 20 years in prison. But this story opens the floor for more questions, ones defining why this is such an issue. Reason being, this 17-year-old girl isn't the only example. These cases, whether we like to admit it or not, occur on a daily basis, with over 66% of victims being trafficked by family, friends, and intimate partners. The International Labor Organization has estimated that there are 40.3 million victims of human trafficking globally. And in 2020, the Human Trafficking Hotline recorded 10,583 reported cases of human trafficking, with 8,400 female cases, 1,200 male cases, and 86 gender minority cases. However, looking at these targets, we also need to look at their situations. The hotline reports that individuals such as runaway and homeless youth, foreign nationals, and those with violent and traumatic pasts are the most vulnerable to human trafficking because they are the easiest to manipulate. However, despite traffickers preying on these vulnerabilities, the Department of Justice stated in 2023 that there is no single profile for a trafficking victim. And similar to this, there is also no single profile for a trafficker. This is why human trafficking has been so difficult to combat, both in the US and other countries. 99.6% of cases go unreported, and this is partly because there is no specific outline for a trafficker. because it truly could be anyone. With that being said, it's important to note what we do know about the traffickers and their mindset. Take a look at a case that was uncovered in January of this year, when 46 people were arrested in connection to a trafficking ring in North Texas. Among them were a volunteer firefighter, a youth pastor, a high school teacher, a football coach, and the director of operations for a large hospital network. Special Agent John Perez was on the task force for this, and he stated that there are a lot of misconceptions because it's the people you think are family men. People in positions we trust our children and families with. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I know why these cases happened, but researchers at the DePaul University College of Law made an attempt to understand their mindset in 2010. And thanks to the anti-trafficking review completed in 2022, we now know that the individuals within this study fall under the legal definition of sex trafficking. The study itself found that many of the individuals were incorporated in a long-time cycle of abuse and neglect. One of them stating that this was why his entrance into the game was almost hereditary. Another woman stated that her mother was a junkie and would sell her to the landlord and any other men that wanted a young girl. And when she finally escaped her mother's abuse, she fell right back into the cycle with another trafficker because she considered it normal. This is what makes a trafficker's mindset so dangerous, because they grew up with it. They think that it's a way of life and one that should be supported and learned. One trafficker stated that he helped girls when no one else would. He dressed them up and he taught them how to survive. The individuals within this study don't believe that they've done anything wrong. One of them went so far as to say that if people want somebody to blame for this, they need to look in the mirror, because we all contribute to this stuff one way or the other. In 2010, this quote was referencing the sexualization of our society, but today, the meaning is different. We are all factors in human trafficking, not because we support it, but because we have the devices in our hands that are able to spread misinformation like wildfire. Finally, we need to understand why misinformation on this topic is so harmful. Human trafficking has recently been handled like a joke on the internet, with influencers trying to make people believe things that don't even exist. In 2020, a girl named Samara Duplessis went missing for 2 days before she was found and safely returned home. However, a couple months later, she discovered a tweet, one containing a screenshot from the Wayfair website advertising a pillow named Duplessis for $9,999. The tweet also contained a photo of her from when she had initially went missing. A few retweets later, and the Wayfair trafficking conspiracy theory would become one of the fastest spreading disinformation campaigns on the internet. Even after Homeland Security deemed this an algorithm mistake, and anti-trafficking organizations begged the public to stop spreading these stories, they continued. Influencers that normally posted product reviews and blogs were posting regularly about these theories, even expanding to include popular household names like Tom Hanks and Oprah. One conspiracy was apparently so convincing that 28-year-old Edgar Welch believed that a Washington pizza restaurant was abusing children in its basement. And on his way to the pizzeria, he made a video for his 2 daughters stating that he could not let them grow up in a world that was so corrupt by evil. He then fired 3 shots from his AR-15 into the establishment, claiming that he wanted to rescue those children. His was titled a cautionary tale, one defining why online conspiracies about sex-trafficked children could lead to real-life violence. So not only are these bogus stories blocking real victims from getting help, they are now inciting violence in our communities. The crazy part? One woman's post was titled the one that started it all. One wrong post, one misinformed tweet, one clout-obsessed influencer, all had the power to spark a Wayfair-like scandal, blocking real, informed efforts against trafficking. today. We first broke down what human trafficking is and who is affected. Then we learned who is actually committing these crimes before finally understanding why misinformation is so dangerous. Human trafficking is a hard topic, and a serious one at that. It's not something that can be made into a joke on the internet for likes and shares. It should be researched on credible sites like Polaris and the Blue Campaign, sites dedicated to ending it. Because while I've stood up here for the last 10 minutes, 740 people were trafficked. And that isn't a joke.